رسول النبي الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قال الله تعالى في شأن حبيبي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. Today is the 14th of this month of Ramadan, and so almost half the month is already gone, and before we know it, the rest of the month will be gone. As I mentioned last week, I was going to talk about the Battle of Badr next couple of weeks, inshallah. Badr took place in Ramadan on the 17th of Ramadan. And it was the first year that the fasting was made obligatory, which is the second year of the Hijrah. So fasting became obligatory, and then the issue of Badr came up. I'm going to go over things very quickly because there's a lot to cover. I'm going to skip over a lot of details because I want to focus on certain points. As far as just the background to Badr, we know, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made hijrah to Medina Munawwara, the threat did not end. It's not like, he moved and now everything's fine. The threat continued to the extent that Medina, the whole city itself, became boycotted. And Abdullah ibn Masud, radiallahu anhu, he says that we did not eat our full until after Khaybar. So the 13 years in Mecca and another 7 years in Medina, there was food shortage, food uncertainty, all of these things, because food has been used as a weapon. It's not a new thing, this is an old thing. And the whole city is being boycotted because of their support of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, and at the same time, Quraysh are trying to make a plan to come and attack Medina. And this is one of the reasons they stepped up their caravans that they were sending to Sham and to Yemen to get the money, to get enough equipment and weapons to attack Medina Munawwara. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would send out expeditions periodically to go and try to stop these caravans that were moving back and forth. So this caravan, this particular caravan, which was led by Abu Sufyan, was a very large caravan, and it was coming back from Sham. And this caravan would have allowed the Quraysh to have enough weapons and money to come and attack Medina. And before he would send out, just small groups to go and deal with whichever caravan, he never sent out any of the Ansar. All of the people that would be sent out in these expeditions would always be the immigrants who had come from Mecca, or the Muhajir. This time, with this large caravan, he allows the Ansar to join. So you have with him 82 Muhajir, so 82 of the immigrants from Mecca. And the rest of the 313 were the Ansar, of which 170 were from Khazraj and 61 were from Aus. So these are the two large tribes in Medina Munawwara. And of course, they're leaving with the intention of attacking this caravan, capturing the caravan. No one knows at that time, other than Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that there's going to be an actual battle with the army of Quraysh. They did not leave well equipped. They had 2 horses, 70 camels, and a few swords, some spears, and that was it. Because again, they weren't coming out for war. They were coming to stop this caravan. Of course, Abu Sufyan, realizing that Rasulullah has come out and what's going on, he sends word to Quraysh, and the word that he sends to Quraysh is that your caravan has been attacked and all of the wealth has been plundered. So all of these people in Quraysh, when they receive this news, everybody's up in arms. And so this is when Abu Jahl seizes the opportunity and gets everybody ready to come for war against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they leave with 1,000 men, well equipped, literally armed to the teeth. You have one of them who the only thing, when he put his armor on, the only thing you could see was his eyes. You had another one who had a spear in one hand, a sword in the other hand. He had a dagger, he didn't know where to put it, so he put it in his teeth. He placed it in his mouth. Literally armed to the teeth. On the way there, of course, Quraysh had a further way to go. Badr is about 3 days' journey from Medina Munawwara as far as an army's march. So it's closer to Medina, much closer to Medina than it is to Mecca. They are slaughtering 10 camels a day, Quraysh's army is, to feed the army. One point to note, and I'm going to bring this up later, because in the way people manipulate things or use things and try to give a negative picture. When Rasulullah arrives in Badr, he stops at a certain point. There are wells that are in front of him, right? But he stops well before the wells, the water wells. Quraysh are coming and they're going to be on the other side. When Rasulullah stops, one of the companions, he asked him, he said, Ya Rasulullah, are we stopping here because this is the command of Allah? Or are we stopping here because of an issue of strategy? And Rasulullah says, no, it's not the command of Allah to stop here or to pitch our tents here. So then he says, Ya Rasulullah, may I suggest that we move forward and take control of the wells. And that way we control the water. And Rasulullah accepts his advice and they move forward. And then they lay their camp there, controlling the water. So just remember that point. Okay? Of course, when they also get there, when the army of Rasulullah realizes that there's going to be a war, they're going to fight a war, this is not just going and stopping a caravan, he holds council with them. He gathers all of them that night, and he asks them, he says, this is what's happened, and we're going to meet the enemy or the army, so what do? You tell us what to do. So Abu Bakr, he stands up and he says, Ya Rasulullah, you lead us anywhere and we will follow you. And Rasulullah thanks him for his words and he sits down. And then he asks again. And this time Umar, he stands up and he says, Ya Rasulullah, he basically repeats what Abu Bakr says, again, whatever you say, whatever you tell us to do, wherever you lead us, we will go. And again, Rasulullah thanks him and he sits down. And he asks again. And now Miqdad bin Amr, he stands up. And he says, Ya Rasulullah, we are not like the children of Israel who told Musa that you and your Lord go and fight. We will be with you wherever you lead us. And even if you take us to Badr bin Ghimad, or Badr al-Ghimad, which is a place in Yemen, we will follow you there and fight against anyone who opposes you. And again, Rasulullah thanks him, and he sits down. And again, Rasulullah asks. So now, Sa'd bin Mu'adh, who is the leader of Aus, the smaller tribe amongst the Ansar. He stands up and he says, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are you asking us? Because in the agreement with the Ansar at Aqaba, there's no mention of fighting outside of the city. The only mention was that they would defend Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam so long as he was within the city. They were not obliged, per the agreement, to defend him any place else, or to fight alongside with him any place else. And so when Sa'd, he asked the question, Rasulullah says, yes, I'm asking you, the Ansar. So this is when he says, Ya Rasulullah, he says, we have accepted you. And we have believed in you. And we have accepted your message as the message of truth. And so you lead us, even if you lead us into the sea, which for a desert Arab is a big deal. This is a statement like you take us to the end of the world. The thing is, like Miqdad rather said, you lead us here and we'll go wherever you lead us. Well, if you're fighting on land, there's a possibility you'll survive. He says, you lead us into the sea, we will follow you. When you're fighting against the waves of the ocean, you're not going to survive. And he says, and we, the Ansar, when we fight with vigor and we fight with strength. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to show what pleases you tomorrow. The pleasure of Rasulullah. And then Sa'd bin Ubadah, who was the leader of the Khazraj, which was the larger clan. They're the ones who had 170 men in this army. He says, he basically repeats what Sa'd bin Mu'adh said. So you have two Sa'ds here. Sa'd bin Mu'adh is the leader of Aus, Sa'd bin Ubadah is the leader of Khazraj. So he says, Ya Rasulullah, you take us into the sea, and we will go with you, wherever you lead us. Read Surah Anfal, because there are many things mentioned in Surah Anfal, Surah number 8, in regards to the Battle of Badr. As I said, I'm not going to go into a lot of the details. So now, the next day, of course, that night it rained. And the interesting thing about the rain was that the rain made the area of Quraysh very slick and hard to stand. Whereas that same rain made the area where the Muslims were firm, made the ground firm and easy to move on. So that morning, Rasulullah, he says to them, one of the leaders of Quraysh, Uthba bin Rabi, he's riding this red camel. And Rasulullah, he says to his men, he says, all of the good that is within them, within Quraysh, lies in that man on the red camel. If they listen to him, they will all be saved. So this is when Uthba, he goes to Quraysh and he says, look, we don't need to fight them. Because when we look over there, we're looking at the one who's going to be killing our brothers or killing our fathers. When we look at ourselves, we'll be doing the same. Because his own son is in the army of Rasulullah. Hudayfa radiallahu anhu. On this side you have Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, on the side of the believers. On the other side you have his father. On this side you have Mus'ab bin Umair. On the other side you have his brother. And so many, fathers, brothers, cousins, nephews, fighting against each other. So he says, look, we don't have to do this. I will pay the blood money, because one of the excuses Abu Jahl used was, we need to take revenge for Amr bin Hadrami, who had been killed in one of these attacks on one of these caravans. And I'm not going to go into the detail of that attack, but he was killed, and this was what Abu Jahl used. Oh, we have to take blood revenge for him. So Utbah says, I will pay his blood money, and we can all go back. We don't need to fight. And Abu Jahl, when he hears this, he says, oh, he's just afraid because his son's on the other side. He's a coward. So the same man who at one moment is saying, let's go back, let's not fight, when his ego gets stroked, what happens? He says, I will show you. He's the first to run out in the battlefield. And he walks around looking for a helmet. His head's so big, there's no helmet that fits him. So he comes out without a helmet, and he comes into the battle, and he calls his brother, Shayba, and his son, Walid, to come out. And so these three go out, and they challenge the believers to a duel, one-on-one. And as soon as he issues the challenge, three men run out from the side of the believers, on the side of the Muslims. Abdullah ibn Rawaha, Auf, and Mu'adh bin Harith, two brothers. So these three run out. And they position themselves in front of the other, the opposing three. And Utbah, he asks, who are you? And they tell them who they are. And he says, we don't want to fight you. We want our equals. We're Quraysh. We are the leaders of the Arabs. We want our equals to fight with. So Utbah, from there, he calls out to Rasulullah. And he says, Ya Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we don't want to fight. We want our equals. Send our equals to fight us. So Rasulullah, he calls them back. And then he says, Aina Ali? Ya Ali. First one he calls, Ya Ali, go. Hamza, go. Ubaidah, go. All three from his house. And of course, Ubaidah bin Harith, most people don't know who he is, but he is the son of the oldest son of Hazrat Abdul Muttalib. So he is the cousin of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So these three, they go out. Hamza radiyallahu is positioned in front of Utbah. Ubaidah is positioned in front of Shayba, the brother of Utbah. And Ali radiyallahu is positioned in front of Walid, the son of Utbah. And Walid is a seasoned veteran in warfare. He's fought 23 different battles. This is Ali radiyallahu first battle. Walid, 23 different battles, undefeated. Huge man. So now, when they're facing off, Walid, he asked Ali. Ali, amongst the people at that time, was considered short. Not really short, but just shorter than most. So he told him, he said, Walid says to him, I don't fight children, go. Why are you here? Now they exchange words, and Ali then says, well, regardless if you don't fight children or not, you have to fight me today. So Utbah attacks Hamza radiyallahu anhu, and Hamza radiyallahu anhu dispatches him very quickly. Shayba attacks Ubaidah bin Harith radiyallahu anhu, and they each strike each other basically at the same time. Both fatal blows, but not immediately fatal. And they both fall. Walid attacks Ali radiyallahu anhu. And Ali radiyallahu anhu dispatches him with one blow, striking on the shoulder, going through him. See how this huge man falling in two pieces. And it's going through the armor. These guys are, like I said, they are well equipped, covered in armor. Then Ali, after that, he dispatches Shayba. He finishes Shayba off. He picks up Ubaidah bin Harith, and brings him to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he lays him, and Ubaidah Ubaida's blessed head is placed on the blessed thigh of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, will I be amongst the martyrs? And he says, yes. And then he says, then perhaps that poem of Hazrat Abu Talib applies to me, where he says that we will sacrifice our children, but we will not sacrifice Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is how he passes, how he's martyred. There's a narration in Sahih Bukhari where Ali radiallahu anhu, he says that I will be the first to kneel before Ar-Rahman, before the Merciful, as far as those who dispute. And this is referring to the verse in Surah Hajj, verse number 19. هذان خصمان اختصموا في ربهم. That the two disputed in regards to their Lord. So Ali says, I will be the first to kneel before Ar-Rahman in regards to this dispute. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised the believers that He would send 1,000 angels for their help. And He says in the Quran, He says this was simply to strengthen them. But He ends up sending 5,000 because all of the angels want to go. All of them want to come. Just like amongst the people, the 313 companions of Badr are the best. So those 5,000 angels that were allowed to come and take part in Badr are also the best amongst the angels. So this was a distinction for them. And the companions, they said, we could tell which people were killed by the angels and which were killed by people, because the ones that were killed by angels, their wounds were cauterized. You know, when the neck flew off, no blood came out. But having said that, if you look at, in this battle, of course, 70 of Quraysh are killed. 70 of their leaders. So these aren't just average men being killed. These are their leaders. And of those 70, 36 of them were killed by Ali radiallahu anhu himself. And he helped in another 13. So 49, were killed by Sayyidina Ali karamallahu of the 70. So that leaves 21. 21 for the remaining 313 companions and the 5,000 angels that were sent. This is why when Umar bin Abdul Aziz, rahmatullah alayhi, his father sent him to study, and he sat in the class with Ubaydullah ibn Abdullah ibn Utbah bin Mas'ud, who was the grandson of the brother of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, radiallahu. And the topic of Ali radiallahu came up. And Umar bin Abdul Aziz, being a young boy, having heard the propaganda, because at that time it was